Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt Johnson. I am counsel to the New Hampshire Realtors and also a shareholder at Divine, Millimet, and Branch. This is the next installment in our Back to Basics video series. With me today is the chair of our risk management subcommittee, Jim Lyons, who is going to help us with today's topic, which is the initial meeting with the buyer. So, Jim, this is obviously a key point in a potential relationship with a new client. Can you give the audience some advice about how you approach that initial meeting with the first time you're going to meet a new client?
Matt, thank you. It really is an interesting topic, and it's one that many practitioners find to be difficult and challenging to present a form to a buyer at first contact when they're trying to build a relationship. So sometimes it seems like it's counterintuitive to providing these kinds of forms at the first meeting. But
just let me stop you for a second. That form we're talking about is a brokerage relationship
correct
form.
Correct. Yes. So the very first thing that we want to do on the first contact is to have a discussion with the customer relative to whether they're working with another realtor.
And why is that important?
It's important because obviously they could be liable for a fee if they have a buyer agency agreement signed with another licensee or realtor. At the closing, the other agent may show up with their hand out looking to be paid. So,
right.
So just to avoid that kind of conflict, and many consumers don't understand that, and unless you ask, they won't tell, or you'll find out later in the process, which becomes more of an issue.
That's
so
very good advice.
To have that discussion right up front in a friendly way to ask them if they are working with any other realtors, and then you can make a determination. I've seen many cases it can be someone within your own firm that they're working with.
Of course.
Yeah, because if they want to see a property, they'll just call up and start asking questions. Let's go see it. But you got to pull them back and establish that basis first.
So now moving back to the brokerage disclosure form, any tips about how to convey that information? Because I agree, it's a little bit not necessarily what you would normally do in the flow of a first business meeting, but we have to do it, and the Real Estate Commission requires it to be signed, requires realtors to keep it. So we got to do it. So tips about how to get that across to the buyer effectively?
I always find the very first thing to do is to let the people know, just as it says on the top of the form, it is not a contract. So an explanation of the fact that this is not a contract, this is merely a disclosure. So there are many different relationships that consumers or members of the public can have with licensees. And the second page clearly shows there can be any number of these things, or we could pull out a legal pad and create another relationship if we choose. So this is merely a disclosure so that you understand who I work for. And it also allows you the opportunity to have representation if you choose to. So that's all it is. And many people are told at an early age never sign anything without going to an attorney first or whatever. But this isn't a contract. Still clearly states that right on the top. And then I think it's a great practice to walk through those different kinds of relationships so that the consumer has a clear understanding of probably one of the greatest areas of question is dual agency.
Sure.
So that's something I think that needs to be dealt with. Because generally the consumer at that first meeting, they want what they want. They want to see a property, but this is important groundwork to do. And if you do this properly, it's going to help you moving forward with the transaction to avoid any kinds of misunderstandings.
Fantastic advice. So last question. So I know the buyer is going to be feeling the agent out or the broker out in terms of fit, but what about what's the role of this meeting for the realtor to assess the potential client and whether this is a good fit? Where do you see that?
It is true that while we'd like to be able to work with every consumer, sometimes there isn't a good fit. Particularly, I will say that we shouldn't be working outside of our area of expertise. So if a consumer begins to express that they have an interest in an area that you're not familiar with, and that could be beyond the type of property that they're looking for, if you don't feel particularly comfortable and educated and informed, it's best not to begin to work with a customer or sign them up as a client if you're not very comfortable with that area. It could also mean a change in locality. So it may be someone that is looking for a property in another part of the state that you're not familiar with, and you don't know anything about that area or zoning or all of the things that go on. All the towns, as you know, differ. So some agents may feel more comfortable doing that and moving a little bit out of their locale. And then there's others that will stay in a particular area because they feel more comfortable and educated in that area.
Jim, that's very helpful in terms of walking through some of the things to consider for the initial meeting from the buyer's perspective. Thank you so much. And that concludes this video segment.
Thank you, ma'am.